Okay, JAIN to all of you. So I am JAISHREE Jain, Assistant Professor in Computer Science and Engineering Department. Today my lecture is on the topic cloud security and privacy. That is a part of subject is cloud computing. So in this lecture we will understand about the security and privacy concern of on the cloud server, so that if we are taking the services of cloud and we are going to upload our data over the cloud, then how can we ensure that our sensitive data is secure over the cloud network, as we all know that there are various attacks on the network. So it's very important and it's very crucial if we are taking any cloud service and we are going to upload our data over the cloud network, then the channel or the attack that occur on the network, that should be secured. Our data should be protected and it should be secure over the outside attacks. So in this lecture we will understand what are the different attacks, what can be possible threats over the cloud network, and how can we protect and secure our data from those attacks. So firstly, this is the outline of my lecture. First part is introduction, second part is security and privacy issues in cloud computing, and third part is possible solutions. So part 1 is introduction. In introduction we will learn about the cloud computing background and cloud models. So why do you still hesitate to use the cloud computing? This is the main concern of this lecture. Causes and problem associated with cloud computing, taxonomy of fear and threat model. So we will understand one by one these terms of cloud. So first is cloud computing background. What is this? We all know features is use of internet based services to support the business process. So actually in every business field we are going to use the cloud services nowadays. So we all know cloud computing is nothing. This is a use of network and using the web services. We have provided there is service provider which hosts the services over the network, and the customer will gain the take the service that is as per pay as per use. So this is very important term. Next is rent IT services on a utility like basis. So this is the part that the services are on the rental base. So whatever the resources are hosted on the web server, those resources can be accessed by the customer if there is a agreement that is called SLA, service level agreement. So according to the agreement, what is the cost that is defined for that service will be charged from the customer as per the usage basis. So this is utility like basis. Third one is attributes. So what are the different attributes of cloud computing? First is rapid deployment, means all the services are going to be deployed over the network. Second, low startup cost and capital investment. If I am going to develop my own cloud, then I have to invest for the setup of the resources, or I have to deploy one web server there, and so that and take the service, connect with the internet, also take the service of internet. So all these will occur in the capital investment. Third is cost based on the usage or subscription. So I already told there is one kind of SLA. It's the responsibility of the provider. Provider will build one SLA kind of agreement and just design or make one billing agreement, so that whatever the resources are hosted over the cloud or over the network, when customer use or take the service of that resource, we can measure the services, we can measure the cost, what resource is going to be used, and according to the usage what will be the final bill of the customer. So this is the subscription or usage based cost. Next is multi-tenant sharing of services and resources. That is, the resources are not fixed to be used by only one user. The cloud have the multi-tenant sharing structure, means the resources can be shared. Resources actually got provision over the cloud. so that as per customer demand resources can be divided, and according to the demand only that resource, that part of the resource can be allocated to the user, and rest of the resource will remain for usage, that will remain free for the next users. So this is a multi-tenant sharing of services. Essential characteristics of cloud, we already understand in unit 1 what are the different characteristics: on demand self-services, ubiquitous network access, and location independent resource pooling, rapid elasticity, and measured services. Means mainly if we can say essential characteristics of cloud computing is these are the 5 essential characteristics of cloud. So already we understand, but what is this on demand self service? Means the cloud services are based on the demand. Ubiquitous network access means there is a broad network access, from any location we can access the cloud services. Location independent and resource pooling means ki all the resources are get pooled, or get fetched into one pool, and those resources are location independent, we can access from any location. Rapid elasticity means if we have attached the various resources over the network, and we are going if the customer demand more resources, for that there is a feature of elasticity. As per demand increases, the resources will get added over the network. Measured services means all the services are going to be measured, so that one bill can be prepared for the usage as per consumption of the resources. So these are the essential characteristics, and cloud computing is a compilation of existing technique. Actually, we already developed the distributed system before cloud computing. We have the parallel computing and grid computing like that. So cloud is the one step ahead of these technique, and with the new infrastructure paradigm that offering the improved scalability. So there are certain feature which make cloud different from the other computing technique that were used in the past. So these features are scalability, elasticity, business agility, and reduce management cost and all that. So this is all about cloud brief introduction, and next is massive concentration of the resources. So what is this? Also a massive concentration of the risk, expected loss from the single breach. As we know, our data is on the network, and also user don't know the location of the data, from where the data is located. So there will be certain risk. So firstly we have to understand the risk, and next step is how to mitigate those risks. So also massive concentration of risk, expected loss from single breach can be significantly larger, and concentration of user represent concentration of threats. So there are we all know that the services are have the multi-tenant uses. So many users are going to share the same services. So if the user is trying to access the data that is not his data, his or her data, so how can we ensure the authenticity of the user? How can we ensure the privacy of the user data? So there can be some loss of the data also. Ultimately, you can outsource responsibility, but you can't outsource the accountability. It means all the resources that are going to be shared over the cloud, those resources must be have the measured services, and finally we are going to outsource. Actually, we are going to outsource our resource services, but we have to concentrate over the resource privacy also. So how can we preserve the privacy? So the question arises, who should use it? Who should use the cloud services? So cloud computing definitely makes sense if your own security is weak, missing feature, or below average. So any business which are going to take the services of the cloud So there should be some security agreement also between the business partners, so that according to the user services, only those user can access the data which have the right authenticity, which have the right access to take the service. So ultimately the cloud provider security people are better than yours. It means there are two type of user basically. Cloud provider side user are also there, which are the internal employee of the organization, and second one are the outside users, which are going to take the service over the public cloud. So how can we say cloud provider security people are better than yours? The web services interfaces don't introduce too many new vulnerability. So if we are deploying the services over the web, so those web services UI or interface should not introduce new vulnerabilities. The cloud provider aims at least as high as you do and at security goal. Then cloud computing has a better security. So for achieving the high security, the cloud computing provider must ensure these things, so that we can say provider can ensure the customer that our services are secure. So what about the cloud models? What are the different cloud model? There are three delivery model, as we all know: software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. These are the three delivery models. So this is depend on the customer, what kind of service the customer want to take, and there are certain deployment model like private cloud, community cloud, public cloud, and hybrid cloud. So the user can any provider can deploy the cloud. It can be private cloud, means the provider have give the access to any enterprise, so that they can self manage their services. So the ultimately the privilege or the access grant is provided to the enterprise itself, so that only it can be actually cloud services can be used by the internal employee only. It is not deployed on the public network. Community cloud means if the community means there is a group of cloud servers, and they make one community, so that their data can be shared or their services can be shared over the that community. Like there are three cloud servers, and they make one collaboration, and their services also get collaborated. So if there is a service request by any customer, by any employee of that group, so they can access those services. So only group employee or group customer can take those services. Third is public cloud. Public means that is over the worldwide, and anyone can access those services from any location. And hybrid cloud means combination of any two cloud. So it can be combination of private cum public cloud, or private cum community, or community cum public. Any two cloud combination is known as hybrid cloud. And management models means trust and tenancy issue. So trust and tenancy issue we can divide it into two categories: self-managed and third-party managed. That is public cloud and virtual private cloud. So self-managed is that is private cloud, part of private cloud, that is self-managed, and third-party managed means that is public cloud, means any external provider like Amazon or any Microsoft or IBM, they are going to they are the third party vendor which are going to manage those services. So impact of cloud computing on the governance structure of IT organizations. If we are going to we are going to judge what are the different delivery model, and what kind of privilege or access will be provided to the user, and what can be controlled by the user, and what can be not controlled by the user. So these are the categories. First is on premises. On premises means it is a kind of private cloud that is deployed on premises. So here we have the services. First is network service, storage service, server, and virtual machines applications. Fine. So the green part is organization has control, means if it is on premises means self-manage. Self-manage means all these services will be managed by the organization itself. And this part of network, this is yellow part, means organizations share control with the vendor, means if any cloud provider is providing their services to the enterprise, so that they can further take the control of the all the services. So only this part is managed by the vendor, rest of the part will be managed by the organization directly. And next is on premises hosted. On premises hosted means that is private cloud, but it is managed by the vendor, means third party. So if the condition is this, then these three services will be under the governed by the third party vendor, like network services, storage, and server. It means the network is managed by the third party. Storage means data center is not set up in my organization. Data center is located in any other location, and that is managed by the vendor or service provider. And servers are also deployed at any location that is outside my organization. And only this part, means virtual machines and applications, can be deployed by the organization itself. Only this part will be controlled by the organization. So next is infrastructure as a service. In infrastructure as a service, we have this red part, that is vendor has control. It means if I am going to take infrastructure as a service, in these services are on the we can say on the public cloud or any hybrid cloud or community cloud. So this is red part, means vendor has control, means these services are deployed over the cloud. And now I am going to take the infrastructure as a service, like we take the service from AWS, Amazon Web Service. So these services will be controlled by the or deployed by the provider, and these virtual machine instances will be created by the organization, share control over the vendor with the vendor. And this app will be controlled by the customer or organization. Organization mean customer. So customer can deploy their application accordingly, because customer have taken the service of infrastructure. Infrastructure means compute, network, and storage, means all the services will be, only infrastructure will be deployed, and the customer can now deploy its virtual machine and apps over it. Next is platform as a service. This is one step ahead, means platform as a service means all these services will be managed by the vendor. Only platform is one kind of APIs or some library support will be provided to the customer, so that customer can deploy their app, so that customer will get the environment. If I want to host my website over the cloud, and I don't have the web server, so I can take the services from the cloud and I can host my website over there. Like for example, Google App Engine. Google App Engine is going to provide the service of platform, and with the help of Google App Engine, customer can host their website over there. So already providing the platform for deploying the web content. And next is software as a service. What is software as a service? All the control will be under the vendor, and only online applications are all also converted in online form. Only user have to use that. Like we are using Colab, it is already providing me the API to run my Python code over there. Fine. So software as a service means application are all, also converted into online form. So these are all the about the delivery model and services. Next is, if cloud computing is so great, why isn't everyone doing it? So question arises. Fine. So cloud act as a big black box. Nothing inside the cloud is visible to the client. Fine. So this is a big issue, as I already told. User don't know where the data reside. User don't know where the cloud infrastructure located. So client have no idea or control over what happened inside the cloud. Even if the cloud provider is honest, it have the malicious system admin who can tamper with the virtual machine. So if we are going to take the service of any infrastructure, like I have opted one virtual machine and I am going to deploy my data over there or applications installation over there. So how can we ensure that provider can't access my data? So provider employee, internal employee can also change my data or can access my read my information. So who can tamper with the virtual machine and violate the confidentiality and integrity. And cloud are still subject to traditional data confidentiality, integrity, availability and privacy issues. So plus some additional attacks. So these are all the risk if we are taking the cloud services. So how can we resolve them? This is a main question. Companies are afraid to use the cloud. So rate the challenge or issue as subscribed by the cloud on demand model. So there are some parameters like security issue is 74.6% and performance issue 63.1%, availability 63.1%. So here are the these are the actually percentage. It means these issues are rises. So this is already red line and 63% of data will not get available every time. Hard to integrate with in-house IT, not enough ability to customize, worried on demand will cost more, and bringing back in-house may be difficult, regulatory requirement prohibit cloud, not enough major suppliers. So these all are the issue, and this is a rating percentage of responding 4 or 5. So these problem are cause of problem associated with cloud computing. Most are the security problem. In security there are 3 problem: loss of control, lack of trust and multi-tenancy structure. So we have to control this, we have to mitigate this, and these problem exist mainly in third party management. Okay, so in self manage already we can say private cloud is much secure rather than public cloud. So third party management model have facing these kind of issue. So self managed cloud still have the security issue but not related to above. So lack of control in the cloud. First is lack of control. What is loss of control? So customer loss of control is data, application, resources are located with the provider. I already told customer don't know where the data reside. User identity management is handled by the cloud. If I am going to take the service, one kind of user ID or password is provided to me so that I can log in and take the service, but my login credential can be stalled and anyone can enter my user ID and password if it will be stolen. So user identity is handled by cloud. User access control rules, security policy and enforcement are managed by the provider. So if they are going to provide the security and their internal employee are going to break this and can access the user sensitive data, so how can we ensure the security of the data? And consumer rely on the provider to ensure data security and privacy. So there is no rule that customer can lock their data or can provide the security or can encrypt the data before uploading their data over the cloud. So security and privacy issues there. Resource availability means ki, the resources I am going to access is not available at that time. So how can my business will affect and the resource will not available. Monitoring and repairing the services or resource. So this is also one issue. How can we monitor, how can we repair if my data get corrupted, how can we repair my data back? Fine. Next is lack of trust in the cloud. Trusting a third party that required taking the risk, defining trust and risk. So lack of trust means opposite side of the same coin. People only trust when it pay. Obviously, need for trust arises only in risky situation. So we all know over the public cloud the data is at the risk. Because the channel attack are there on the network, there are various threats are there, so there is a problem of trust. Defunct third party management schemes, hard to balance trust and risk. For example, key escrow is a cloud headed toward the same path. Fine, this is one example. How can we clipper chip means how can we balance between trust and risk. Next issue is multi-tenancy issue, means conflict between tenant opposing goals. Tenants share a pool of resource and have the opposing goal, means resources are same but are shared by the various users and their goals are different, for which purpose we are going to take the service. So how does multi-tenancy deal with the conflict of the interest? Can tenant get along together and play nicely? If they can't, can we isolate them? So there is a question of isolation. If the resources are shared with the multi-tenant, then one tenant or one user can't access the data of the other user. So the isolation should be there. How to provide separation between the tenant? Cloud computing brings new threats. Multiple independent users share the same physical infrastructure and thus an attacker can legitimately be in the same physical machine as the target. So virtual machine is there is a single virtual machine and there are different resources like RAM and hard disk and CPU. So if the resources are going to be shared over the single virtual machine and any user is going to attempt or can change the setting of the CPU or RAM, so the data will get blocked or not available at that time. So this is one kind of issue is there. Taxonomy of fear is confidentiality, means fear of loss of control over the data. So first fear is of confidentiality, means loss of control. Will the sensitive data stored on a cloud remain confidential, and will cloud compromise leak confidential client data? So this is one major issue. Will the cloud provider itself be honest and won't peek into the cloud? So next is integrity. Integrity is how do I know that the cloud provider is doing the computation correctly. Integrity means we are going to update my in our data. So if my data I have saved my data over the cloud, and if at the provider and any employee is going to change my data, so how can we ensure data will not be modified? One is only reading the data, one is also modifying the data. So integrity is modification, updation in the data. How do I ensure that cloud provider really stored my data without tampering with it? So it's very much important. So if my data is got changed, how can I match what is my original data and what is my next updated data? And next is availability issue, that is will critical system go down at the client if the provider is attacked in a denial of service attack. So availability fear is denial of service attack. If several requests are going to access the data and the server will go down, so there will be denial of service attack. What happen if cloud provider goes out of the business? Would cloud scale well enough? If the resource, there is a scarcity of resource or cloud busting problem is there, who will ensure the availability of the resource? Often voiced concern, although cloud provider argue that their downtime compare well with the cloud user on data centers. So privacy issue, next is privacy issue raised by a massive data mining. Data mining, like we are going to fetch the frequently accessed data. Cloud now store data from a lot of clients and can run data mining algorithm to get large amount of information on the client. So data is in large amount, like on the Facebook, Instagram, on any social media. So mining algorithm are going to be deployed so that customer data can be frequently accessed, but there are some privacy issue with the users. Increase attack surface. Entity outside the organization now store and compute data, and attacker can now target the communication link between the provider and the client. So on the channel there are masquerade or some viruses, so any attacker can target to any communication link also, and cloud provider employee can be phished, means their ID can be stolen, and fake IDs request can be there. So how can we ensure the privacy? Next is auditability and forensic. It means out of control of data, means difficult to audit data held outside the organization in a cloud. Means audit means monitoring. So there are several cloud auditor which will take one kind of monitoring or auditing of the performance of the services. So it is very difficult to audit data held outside the organization in a cloud. Forensic also made difficult since now client don't maintain the data locally. So forensic means investigation or cloud data monitoring or performance monitoring. So it's also very difficult because client is also remote, data is at the remote location, and client is going to be accessed from the remote locations. So how can forensic is also facing the same problem. Legal dilemma and transitive trust issue means who is responsible for complying with the regulations. There are HIPAA regulations, SOX, GLBA, means these are the some rules and guideline to follow the principle, or for security related issue some guidelines are there, some laws are there. If cloud provider subcontract to third party cloud, will the data still be secure? This is one very big issue. Next is threat model. So threat model helps in analyzing in a security problem. So the now we have made one threat model to analyze the security issues or problem, design mitigating strategy and evaluate the solution. So steps are identify attackers, assets, threats and other components. Fine. Next, rank the threats, choose the mitigating strategies and build the solution based on the strategy. So these are some steps for making one threat model. Basic components: attacker modeling, attacker goal and vulnerability. So attacker modeling, choose what attacker to consider, insider versus outsider. Both attack can be possible. Internal employee can also update my data. So internal insider attack versus outsider on the channel attack. Single versus collaborator. One single user is going to attempt to change or to unauthorized access of my data, or it is one group collaboration. Attacker motivation, capabilities. So all these kind of things will be analyzed to make one secure model. What is the issue? The core issue here is the level of the trust. Many cloud computing providers trust their customers. Each customer is physically commingling its data with the data from anybody else using the cloud, while logically and virtually you have your own space. So this is a major issue. Next, the way that cloud provider implement the security is typically focus on the fact that those outside of their cloud are the evil. So basically issue is how can we find the insider attackers and how can we find the outsider attacker who are going to break the security. But what if those inside are also evil? So measure is how can we find out the insider attackers. So this is one major issue. So these are the actually major issue in the cloud security, and in next lecture we will understand about the possible solution to tackle with these issues. So thank you so much.